Lucas Iverson tightened his grip on the steering wheel as the memory of his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "I've found someone perfect for you," she had said with that mischievous gleam in her eyes that always spelled trouble. At 34 years old and the owner of a multi-million-dollar construction empire, Lucas didn't need his mother playing matchmaker. He had long ago accepted that his work would always come first, relationships second. Yet here he was, pulling into the upscale restaurant where he'd agreed to meet Natalie Martin, his mother's latest attempt at finding him a wife. "This is the last time," he muttered to himself as he handed his keys to the valet. "The absolute last time." The hostess guided him to a private table in the corner, and Lucas checked his watch. At least this Natalie was punctual. She was already there, her back to him as she studied the menu. From behind, all he could see was a cascade of chestnut hair falling over slender shoulders. "Miss Martin?" Lucas asked, stepping forward. When she turned, time seemed to stop. Her eyes, a striking hazel with flecks of gold, met his, and something shifted in his chest. She wasn't what he'd expected, not another socialite his mother usually tried to set him up with. There was something different, something genuine in her smile that caught him off guard. "Mr. Iverson," she said, standing to shake his hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "Please call me Natalie." Lucas cleared his throat, suddenly aware he'd been staring. "Lucas is fine." "Your mother has told me so much about you," Natalie said as they sat down, "though I suspect half of it was embellishment." "Knowing my mother, probably more than half," Lucas replied with a small smile. "I should apologize in advance for whatever she promised you about me." Natalie laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "She mainly talked about how brilliant you are with your business, and how you work too much." "That part is definitely true," Lucas admitted, relaxing slightly as the waiter approached with water. "I can relate," Natalie said, taking a sip from her glass. "I run my own interior design firm. Small compared to your enterprise, I'm sure, but it keeps me busy enough that my social calendar has been rather sparse lately." Lucas's interest piqued. So she wasn't just another pretty face his mother had dug up from her country club connections. Interior design. What kind of projects do you typically work on? Everything from private homes to commercial spaces. "I specialize in sustainable design, finding ways to make beautiful spaces that are environmentally conscious." Her eyes lit up as she spoke, passion evident in every word. "Your mother mentioned you're in construction. Any chance you've embraced green building practices?" The conversation flowed easily from there, surprising Lucas. They ordered their meals almost as an afterthought, too engaged in discussion to pay much attention to the menu. Natalie was intelligent, articulate, and refreshingly straightforward. By the time their entrees arrived, Lucas had nearly forgotten this was a setup. "So," Natalie said, cutting into her salmon, "are you going to tell me why you agreed to this dinner when it's obvious you'd rather be anywhere else?" Lucas nearly choked on his steak. "That obvious, huh?" "Your mother warned me you might be reluctant. She said, and I quote, 'My son thinks he's too busy for love, but what he doesn't know is that love makes you more productive, not less.'" Lucas couldn't help but laugh. "That sounds exactly like something Deanne Iverson would say." "She's quite the character," Natalie agreed with a smile, "but I think she means well." "She does," Lucas conceded, "but her methods are questionable at best. She's been trying to marry me off since I turned 30. "And why haven't you?" "Married, I mean?" Natalie asked, her directness catching him off guard again. Lucas considered his answer carefully. "I built my company from the ground up. Started with one small renovation project and reinvested every cent of profit until I could take on bigger projects. Now we develop entire communities, office complexes. It's taken every ounce of my energy to get where I am. Relationships. They require time I haven't had. Natalie nodded thoughtfully. I understand the sacrifice. When I started my firm 5 years ago, I worked 18-hour days, slept on a futon in my office more nights than I care to admit. And now, Lucas found himself genuinely curious about her answer. Now I've learned that success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. Her eyes met his, not challenging, just honest. At least, that's what I'm starting to believe. Something about her words resonated with Lucas in a way he wasn't prepared for. They finished their meal discussing their respective businesses, the challenges of entrepreneurship, and their similar views on philanthropy. By the time dessert arrived, Lucas realized with surprise that nearly 3 hours had passed. I should let you get home, he said reluctantly, signaling for the check. I've kept you much longer than I intended. I've enjoyed every minute, Natalie replied, and Lucas believed her. As they walked out of the restaurant, a light rain had begun to fall. Without thinking, Lucas removed his jacket and held it over her head as they walked to the valet stand. Your car or mine? He asked. I actually walked, Natalie admitted. I only live a few blocks away and finding parking in this neighborhood is impossible. Let me drive you home, Lucas offered immediately. It's just rain, Lucas. I won't melt, she teased, but accepted his offer with a nod. The drive to her apartment was short but comfortable. When they arrived, Lucas insisted on walking her to her door, his jacket still sheltering her from the rain. Thank you for tonight, Natalie said as they reached her building. It was unexpectedly wonderful. Lucas found himself reluctant to leave. Would you like to do this again? Perhaps somewhere less formal, where we haven't been manipulated into meeting by my mother, Natalie laughed. I'd like that. Very much. As he drove home that night, Lucas couldn't stop thinking about her, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. How passionately she spoke about her work, the surprising depth of their conversation. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to something other than a business meeting. Back at his penthouse, Lucas's phone buzzed with a text from his mother. So, did you like her? He hesitated before responding, unwilling to give his mother the satisfaction just yet. She was fine. Thanks for the setup. His phone rang almost instantly. Lucas sighed and answered, fine. That's all you have to say. His mother's voice was indignant. Natalie Martin is exceptional and you know it. Mom, it's late. I saw the way you looked at her when you thought no one was watching, Lucas. I haven't seen that look on your face since you signed your first major development contract. Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose. Have you been spying on me? Of course not, Deanne huffed. Margaret and I were having dinner across the restaurant. Pure coincidence. Sure it was, Lucas muttered, though he couldn't muster any real annoyance. Look, yes, she's great. Yes, I'm seeing her again. No, I don't need you to plan our wedding yet. His mother's delighted laugh echoed through the phone. I knew it. You just needed the right woman. Someone who understands your world but brings something new to it. After promising to keep her updated, though he had no intention of doing so, Lucas finally ended the call. As he looked out over the city lights from his window, he found himself smiling. Maybe, just maybe, his mother had been right about something after all. The next morning, Lucas woke earlier than usual, feeling strangely energized. He headed to his home gym for his regular workout, but his mind kept drifting to Natalie. After showering, he found himself reaching for his phone before remembering it was far too early to call. By 9 o'clock, he couldn't wait any longer. He dialed her number, rehearsing what to say, only to be sent straight to voicemail. Slightly disappointed, he left a brief message asking if she'd like to have dinner again that weekend. At the office, his executive assistant, Rachel, immediately noticed something different. You're in a good mood, she observed, handing him his schedule for the day. The Anderson project finally get approved? No news yet, Lucas replied, scanning the calendar. Is my afternoon meeting with the zoning committee still on? Rachel nodded, still studying him suspiciously. Your mother called. Twice. Said it was important but wouldn't tell me what it was about. Lucas groaned. I'm sure it was. By lunchtime, Lucas still hadn't heard back from Natalie, and he found himself checking his phone with increasing frequency. He was reviewing blueprints for a new development when his office phone rang. Mr. Iverson, there's a Miss Martin here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but send her in, Lucas said, perhaps too quickly. He stood, straightening his tie as the door opened. Natalie walked in, looking professionally elegant in a tailored navy dress. She carried a portfolio under her arm and appeared somewhat nervous. Natalie, Lucas greeted her, surprised but pleased. This is unexpected. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, glancing at the blueprint spread across his desk. I was meeting with a client in the building and thought, well, I got your message and instead of calling back. She trailed off, suddenly seeming unsure of herself. I'm glad you came by, Lucas assured her, gesturing to the sitting area in his office. Would you like coffee? Water? Coffee would be great, she said, visibly relaxing. After ordering coffee from Rachel, Lucas sat across from Natalie. So you had a client in the Iverson building. Small world. Actually, Natalie began, opening her portfolio. That's partly why I'm here. I remembered you mentioning a new development during dinner Riverside Commons, I think you called it. You said you were still looking for an interior designer for the model units. Lucas nodded slowly, intrigued. That's right. We're breaking ground next month. I brought some samples of my work, Natalie said, sliding several photographs across the table, projects with similar scale and target demographics. Lucas examined the photos carefully. Each showed beautifully designed spaces that managed to be both modern and inviting. These are impressive. I know this is unorthodox, Natalie continued, and I completely understand if you'd prefer to keep our personal and professional lives separate. But I believe my firm would be perfect for this project. Lucas considered her proposal. Her work was undeniably excellent, exactly the aesthetic he'd been looking for. But mixing business with pleasure, especially with a relationship that had barely begun, was risky. I appreciate your initiative, he said carefully, but I don't want to complicate things between us. Natalie nodded, her expression professional. I understand completely. It was worth a shot. She began gathering her materials. About your dinner invitation, I'd love to. Saturday works for me. Lucas felt relieved. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. After she left, Lucas found himself returning to her portfolio. Her designs were exactly what the Riverside project needed, elegant but approachable, with the sustainable elements that would appeal to his target buyers. Making a decision that was either brilliant or foolish, he called Rachel into his office. Schedule a meeting with the project team for tomorrow. I want to bring in Natalie Martin's firm for the Riverside interiors. Rachel raised an eyebrow but made the note. The woman who was just here. The one your mother has been calling about all morning, Lucas sighed. Yes, but this is strictly business. Her work is exceptional. Of course it is, Rachel replied with a knowing smile. Saturday evening arrived and Lucas found himself more nervous than he'd been for any business presentation. He'd chosen a casual waterfront restaurant, hoping for a more relaxed atmosphere than their first date. When Natalie opened her door, Lucas momentarily lost his train of thought. She wore a simple sundress that highlighted her natural beauty, her hair loose around her shoulders. You look stunning, he said honestly. You clean up pretty well yourself, she replied with a smile, taking in his dark jeans and button-down shirt. The restaurant overlooked the harbor, with tables scattered along a wooden deck. As they were seated, the setting sun cast everything in a golden glow. "I have something to tell you," Lucas said once they'd ordered drinks. "I reviewed your portfolio more carefully after you left. Your work is exactly what Riverside needs." Natalie's eyes widened. "Are you offering me the job?" "I'm offering your firm the opportunity to present a formal proposal to my team," Lucas clarified. "No special treatment, you'll have to win them over on merit alone. But yes, essentially, I'm offering you the job." "I don't know what to say," Natalie replied, looking genuinely moved. "Thank you for considering me." "Thank you for having the courage to ask," Lucas countered. "It's the kind of initiative I admire." Their conversation flowed easily throughout dinner, moving from work to more personal topics. Lucas found himself sharing stories he rarely told anyone about his father's death when he was 22, how it had thrust him into running the small construction company his father had built, and how he'd transformed it into the empire it was today. "Is that why you work so hard?" Natalie asked softly. To honor his legacy, Lucas considered the question. "Partly, but also because I discovered I love what I do. There's something deeply satisfying about creating spaces where people will live their lives, build their businesses, raise their families." "I feel the same way about design," Natalie said, her eyes lighting up. "It's not just about making things beautiful, it's about creating environments where people thrive." After dinner, neither wanting the evening to end, they walked along the harbor, the lights of the city reflecting on the water. Lucas found himself reaching for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Tell me about your family," Lucas said, realizing he knew little about her personal life. "Not much to tell," Natalie replied with a small shrug. "Only child. My parents divorced when I was 12. Dad moved to Arizona with his new wife and I stayed with Mom. She passed away 3 years ago, cancer." Her voice softened on the last word. Lucas squeezed her hand gently. "I'm sorry." "She was my biggest supporter," Natalie continued after a moment. "Loaned me the money to start my business. I wish she could see it now." "I'm sure she'd be incredibly proud," Lucas said sincerely. Natalie smiled up at him. "What about your mom? She seems like quite a force of nature," Lucas laughed. "That's putting it mildly. After my father died, she threw herself into charity work. She sits on half a dozen boards, hosts fundraisers, and apparently arranges dates for her workaholic son." "I like her," Natalie admitted. "Even before I met you, I could tell how much she loves you." "She means well," Lucas agreed. "Though I never thought I'd admit she might have been right about something." "About what?" Natalie asked, stopping to look at him. Lucas turned to face her, still holding her hand. "About you." The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Slowly, Lucas leaned down, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, Natalie rose slightly on her toes to meet him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, but filled with promise. When they broke apart, Lucas felt lightheaded in a way he hadn't experienced since his first successful building project. "I should get you home," he said softly, though it was the last thing he wanted to do. "You should," Natalie agreed, though she made no move to leave. They stood there a moment longer, the city humming around them, before reluctantly making their way back to his car. At her door, their goodnight kiss lingered, deepening with a hunger that surprised them both. It took all of Lucas's restraint to step back, to say goodnight instead of asking to come inside. "I'll see you Monday," he promised. "For the project meeting." Natalie nodded, her lips still flushed from their kiss. "Monday it is." Driving home, Lucas couldn't remember ever feeling this way about anyone before. It wasn't just attraction, though there was plenty of that, but something deeper, a sense of recognition, as if he'd found someone who understood him completely. For the first time in years, Lucas Iverson was thinking about something other than his next business deal, and the thought both exhilarated and terrified him. Monday morning brought a different kind of nervousness for Lucas. As he prepared for the Riverside Commons meeting, he found himself hoping Natalie would impress his team as much as she had impressed him, and not just because he was increasingly drawn to her personally. His project manager, James, arrived first, followed by the head architect and several other key team members. Lucas was just about to start the meeting when Natalie arrived, looking every inch the professional in a tailored pantsuit, her portfolio tucked under her arm. "Miss Martin," Lucas greeted her formally, conscious of the eyes on them. "Thank you for joining us today." If Natalie was nervous, she didn't show it. Her presentation was flawless, detailed, innovative, and perfectly aligned with the vision Lucas had for the development. She explained her sustainable design philosophy, showed examples of previous projects, and outlined specific ideas for the Riverside model units. When she finished, Lucas glanced around the table. His team looked impressed, which filled him with an odd sense of pride. "Any questions for Miss Martin?" he asked. James leaned forward. "Your sustainability approach is impressive, but how does it affect the bottom line? These eco-friendly materials typically cost more." "Initially, yes," Natalie acknowledged, "but I've developed relationships with suppliers that help mitigate those costs. More importantly, the energy efficiency of the designs will translate to lower utility bills for residents, which becomes a strong selling point. And the materials I'm proposing have greater longevity, reducing replacement costs over time." By the end of the meeting, it was clear Natalie had won them over. As the team filed out, James lingered behind. "She's good," he admitted to Lucas. "Her ideas for the community spaces are exactly what we need. So we're moving forward with her firm?" Lucas asked, maintaining his professional demeanor. "Absolutely," James nodded, "though I get the feeling you already knew that would be the decision." After James left, Lucas closed the door to his office where Natalie was gathering her materials. "Congratulations," he said, unable to keep the smile from his face. "You impressed them." "Really?" Natalie's professional composure broke into genuine excitement. "Even James, he asked the toughest questions." "Especially James," Lucas confirmed. "He's not easily won over." Natalie sighed in relief. "Thank you for the opportunity. I promise you won't regret it." "I'm sure I won't," Lucas said, moving closer, "though there is one potential complication." "What's that?" Natalie asked, suddenly concerned. "How do we handle this?" He gestured between them. "While working together, professionally," Natalie answered firmly. "During work hours, I'm just another contractor on your project. After hours." She smiled. "That's different." Lucas nodded, appreciating her straightforward approach. "Agreed." "Speaking of after hours, are you free Wednesday evening? There's a gallery opening I thought you might enjoy." "I'd love that," Natalie replied, her smile warming him from the inside out. As the weeks passed, Lucas and Natalie fell into a rhythm. During the day, they maintained strictly professional interactions when their paths crossed on the Riverside project. Evenings and weekends became precious time for them to explore their growing relationship. Lucas found himself looking forward to their time together in a way that surprised him. Whether they were trying new restaurants, attending cultural events, or simply walking through the city, conversations with Natalie never felt forced or superficial. One evening, about a month into their relationship, they were having dinner at Lucas's penthouse. Natalie had insisted on cooking for him, claiming his kitchen was being wasted on takeout meals. "This is incredible," Lucas said, taking another bite of the risotto she'd prepared. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My grandmother," Natalie replied, refilling their wine glasses. She believed no education was complete without knowing how to make a proper meal. She'd be horrified by your empty refrigerator, by the way. Lucas laughed. In my defense, I'm rarely home before 9 most nights. That's exactly the problem, Natalie said, her tone light but her eyes serious. All work and no play makes Lucas a dull boy. Am I dull? Lucas asked, raising an eyebrow. Natalie pretended to consider the question. Not dull, exactly. But perhaps incomplete. And what would make me complete in your professional opinion? Lucas asked, leaning closer. Balance, Natalie said simply. You've mastered the professional side of life, but there's so much more to experience. Her words hit closer to home than Lucas expected. He had built his empire by sacrificing nearly everything else: relationships, hobbies, relaxation. Looking at Natalie across the table, he suddenly realized how empty his success felt without someone to share it with. You might be right, he admitted, a rare concession for him. Natalie looked surprised. That was easier than I expected. I was prepared for an argument. You make it difficult to argue, Lucas replied, reaching for her hand. Especially when you're right. Later that night, as they sat on his balcony overlooking the city, Natalie nestled against his chest. Lucas found himself more content than he could remember being in years. The constant drive that normally pushed him to check emails or review contracts was quiet for once, replaced by a simple desire to remain in this moment. What are you thinking about? Natalie asked, looking up at him. Lucas hesitated, then decided on honesty. That my mother might have been smarter than I gave her credit for. Natalie laughed. Should I be concerned that you're thinking about your mother right now? Not like that, Lucas chuckled, tightening his arm around her. I'm just grateful she introduced us. Me too, Natalie said softly, leaning up to kiss him. Though I'm never going to tell her that. Her matchmaking ego is big enough already. The kiss deepened, and Lucas lost himself in it, in her. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Lucas knew he was falling hard for Natalie Martin, and for once in his life, he wasn't trying to control the fall. As summer turned to fall, the Riverside Commons project progressed rapidly, as did Lucas and Natalie's relationship. They settled into a comfortable routine, seeing each other several nights a week and spending most weekends together. Lucas found himself delegating more tasks at work, leaving the office earlier to meet Natalie for dinner or to watch her work on design concepts for his development. One afternoon in late September, Lucas arrived at the Riverside site for a scheduled walkthrough. The framework for the community center was up, and Natalie had requested this meeting to discuss lighting placement and built-in features. Lucas spotted her immediately, deep in conversation with the foreman, gesturing animatedly at the ceiling beams. She was so focused she didn't notice him approach, giving Lucas a moment to simply observe her. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, a hard hat perched on her head. Even in construction gear, she took his breath away. Mr. Iverson, the foreman greeted him, alerting Natalie to his presence. She turned, her face lighting up before she schooled her features into professional neutrality. Lucas, perfect timing. We were just discussing the skylight positioning. For the next hour, they walked through the space, with Natalie explaining her vision and Lucas offering practical input about structural considerations. They worked seamlessly together, their different perspectives complementing rather than conflicting. As the meeting wrapped up, Lucas pulled Natalie aside. Do you have plans tonight? Just working late on the finishes for the model kitchen, she replied. Why, cancel them, Lucas said, his voice low. I want to take you somewhere special. Natalie looked intrigued. That sounds mysterious. Should I be concerned? Not concerned, Lucas assured her. Just wear something nice. I'll pick you up at 7. That evening, Lucas arrived at Natalie's apartment precisely on time, a bouquet of lilies, her favorite, in hand. When she opened the door in an elegant burgundy dress, Lucas momentarily forgot what he'd planned to say. "You look." He finally managed. "So do you," Natalie replied with a smile, taking in his tailored suit. "Where are we going that requires such formality?" "You'll see," Lucas said, offering his arm. He drove them to the harbor where a sleek yacht waited, lights twinkling against the darkening sky. Natalie gasped when she realized this was their destination. "Lucas, whose boat is this?" "Mine," he admitted as he helped her aboard. "Though I rarely use it. Another victim of my work schedule." The deck had been transformed with fairy lights and candles. A table was set for two, with champagne chilling in an ice bucket. A chef and server stood discreetly near the cabin entrance. "This is incredible," Natalie breathed as Lucas guided her to the table. As they dined on exquisite seafood and sipped champagne, the yacht cruised gently around the harbor, offering spectacular views of the city skyline. Lucas found himself watching Natalie more than the view, memorizing the way the candlelight played across her features. "Why tonight?" Natalie asked eventually. "Is it some anniversary I've forgotten?" Lucas shook his head. "No special occasion. I just wanted to do something memorable with you." After dessert, they moved to the upper deck where they could see the stars despite the city lights. Lucas took Natalie's hand, suddenly nervous in a way he never was in business negotiations. "I have a confession to make," he began. Natalie turned to him, concern flickering across her face. "That sounds ominous." "Not at all," Lucas assured her quickly. "It's just, I realized something today watching you at the construction site, something I should have recognized sooner." "And what's that?" Natalie asked softly. "That I'm in love with you," Lucas said simply. "Completely, overwhelmingly in love with you, and it terrifies me because I've never felt this way about anyone before." Natalie's eyes glistened in the moonlight. "Lucas, you don't have to say anything," he continued. "I know it's only been a few months, but I wanted you to know how I feel. How you've changed everything for me." Natalie stepped closer, placing her hand against his cheek. "I love you too, Lucas. I think I have since that first dinner when you talked about your buildings like they were living things, meant to shelter and nurture the people inside them." Lucas wrapped his arms around her waist, drawing her against him. "I never expected this, never thought I needed it." "Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan for," Natalie murmured before rising on her toes to kiss him. Later that night, as they lay in each other's arms in his bedroom, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Lucas felt a peace he'd never known. Success had always been his primary goal, building bigger, achieving more. But now, with Natalie's head resting on his chest, her breathing soft and even, he understood that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. Natalie propped herself up on her elbow, searching his face in the darkness. "What?" "Move in with me," Lucas repeated more confidently. "This place feels empty without you. I want to fall asleep with you every night and wake up with you every morning." "Lucas, are you sure? That's a big step." "I've never been more sure of anything," he replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Say yes." Natalie's slow smile was all the answer he needed. "Yes." The following weekend, Lucas helped Natalie move her essential belongings into his penthouse. They'd agreed she would keep her apartment for now. It doubled as her home office, and the lease wasn't up for 6 months anyway. As they unpacked her clothes, making room in his closet that had always been half empty, Lucas's phone rang. His mother's name flashed on the screen. "I should take this," he said apologetically. "If I don't, she'll just keep calling." Natalie nodded understandingly, continuing to organize her things. "Hi, Mom," Lucas answered, bracing himself. "Lucas, darling, I haven't heard from you in weeks. Are you still seeing that lovely Natalie?" Lucas caught Natalie's eye, smiling at her amused expression as she clearly overheard his mother's loud voice. "Yes, Mom. In fact, Natalie's moving in with me." The shriek on the other end of the line was so loud that Lucas had to hold the phone away from his ear. "Moving in together. Oh, this is wonderful news. When's the wedding?" "Mom, we just started living together. There's no wedding planned." "Yet," his mother replied confidently. "I want you both over for Sunday dinner this week. No excuses." After promising they would attend, Lucas ended the call with a sigh. "I apologize in advance for Sunday. She'll be insufferable." Natalie laughed, hanging up the last of her dresses. "I think it's sweet. She loves you and wants you to be happy." "She'll be planning our children's names before the appetizer," Lucas warned. "Then we'd better come prepared with some of our own," Natalie teased, wrapping her arms around his neck, just to counter her suggestions. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You've thought about that? Children, I mean." "Someday," Natalie replied thoughtfully. "Not right away. But yes, eventually I want a family." The conversation should have terrified Lucas. A year ago, it would have sent him running for the nearest exit. But standing in his bedroom, their bedroom now with Natalie in his arms, the thought of building a future with her, including children, felt right. "Me too," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Sunday dinner at Diane Iverson's elegant suburban home was exactly as Lucas had predicted. His mother was practically glowing with satisfaction at having successfully matched her son with Natalie. "I knew from the moment I met you at that charity auction that you were perfect for Lucas," Diane told Natalie as she served them coffee in the living room after dinner. "You have that same spark, that same drive, but you're balanced in ways my son has never been." "Mom," Lucas protested weakly. "It's true, dear," Diane continued unabashed. "You're brilliant with buildings but terrible with people. Natalie understands both." Natalie squeezed Lucas's hand supportively. "I think Lucas understands more than you give him credit for, Diane. He's built an entire company around creating spaces for people to thrive in." Lucas felt a rush of gratitude for her defense, simple as it was. No one had ever really seen him that way before, not even himself. "Well," Diane said, looking pleased, "you two certainly bring out the best in each other. Now, have you thought about a spring wedding? The country club has a lovely garden that would be perfect for an outdoor ceremony." "Mom," Lucas groaned, "we've only been together for 4 months, and living together already," Diane pointed out triumphantly. "At your age, why wait?" "We're enjoying where we are right now," Natalie said diplomatically. "But when the time comes, we'll definitely consider your suggestions." On the drive home, Lucas apologized again for his mother's forwardness. "She means well, but subtlety has never been her strong suit." Natalie laughed, resting her hand on his leg as he drove. "I actually find it refreshing. My mother was always so careful, so afraid of overstepping. It's nice to be around someone who says exactly what she thinks." "Trust me, it gets old fast," Lucas replied, though without real annoyance. "But I'm glad you two get along. It means a lot to her. And to me." That night, lying in bed, Lucas found himself thinking about his mother's not-so-subtle wedding hints. The idea didn't panic him the way it once would have. Instead, he found himself considering what it would be like to make Natalie his wife, to build a life together beyond just sharing an address. "What are you thinking about?" Natalie asked sleepily, curling against his side. "The future," Lucas replied honestly, kissing the top of her head. "Our future," Natalie hummed contentedly. "I like the sound of that." As winter settled over the city, the Riverside Commons project entered its final phases. The model units were nearly complete, with Natalie's designs transforming the spaces into showplaces that perfectly balanced luxury and comfort. Sales were already outpacing projections, with buyers drawn to the sustainable features and thoughtful layouts. Lucas and Natalie settled into domestic life with surprising ease. They developed routines: morning coffee on the balcony when weather permitted, sharing the cooking responsibilities, though Natalie did most of it, working late some nights but always making time for each other. One evening in early December, Lucas arrived home to find Natalie huddled over her laptop at the dining table, surrounded by fabric samples and material boards. "Don't tell me you're still working," he said, loosening his tie and dropping a kiss on the top of her head. "It's after 8. "Just finalizing the presentation for the community center furnishings," Natalie replied, leaning back to look up at him. "The last major piece of Riverside. It's hard to believe we're almost finished," Lucas said, sitting beside her. "What will you do with yourself when you don't have my project to worry about?" Natalie smiled mysteriously. "I might have something lined up already. A boutique hotel downtown is looking for a design firm to handle their renovation." "Really? You didn't mention that." "I wanted to wait until it was definite," Natalie explained. "They called today. We got the contract." "That's fantastic," Lucas exclaimed, genuinely happy for her success. "We should celebrate. Dinner out tomorrow." "Actually," Natalie said, closing her laptop, "I was thinking we might celebrate in a different way. How do you feel about a weekend away? There's a mountain resort about 3 hours north I've been wanting to visit. They just renovated their cabins, and apparently the skiing is excellent." "This weekend?" Lucas asked, mentally reviewing his schedule. "I know it's last minute," Natalie acknowledged, "but the Riverside presentation is Friday. You don't have any major meetings, and we both could use a break before the holidays hit." Lucas considered it. A year ago, he would have immediately said no, citing work commitments. But now, looking at Natalie's hopeful expression, he realized there was nothing he wouldn't postpone to spend time with her. "Let's do it," he agreed. "I'll have Rachel clear my calendar for Friday afternoon. We can leave right after your presentation." Natalie's face lit up. "Really? No argument about how busy you are." Lucas pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm learning what's truly important, and right now that's making you happy." "Making us happy," Natalie corrected him, brushing her lips against his. Friday's presentation went flawlessly, with the project team unanimously approving Natalie's designs for the community center. By 3 o'clock, they were in Lucas's Range Rover heading north, the city receding behind them as mountains rose on the horizon. The resort was everything Natalie had promised: luxurious but rustic, with private cabins nestled among towering pines. Their cabin featured a stone fireplace, a massive bed draped in soft blankets, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a pristine lake. "This is perfect," Lucas said as they settled in, a fire already crackling in the fireplace courtesy of the staff. "How did you find this place?" "One of my clients mentioned it," Natalie replied, unpacking their bags. "I've been saving it for a special occasion." "And what occasion is this?" Lucas asked, coming up behind her to wrap his arms around her waist. Natalie turned in his embrace. 6 months since our first date." "I know it's a bit silly to celebrate half-year anniversaries, but it's not silly at all," Lucas interrupted softly. "In fact, I got you something too." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Natalie's eyes widened as he placed it in her hand. "Lucas." She breathed, hesitating before opening it. Inside lay a delicate bracelet of platinum and diamonds, elegant without being ostentatious. Natalie traced it with her finger, clearly moved. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Like you," Lucas said, helping her fasten it around her wrist. "I wanted something that would remind you of me when we're not together." "As if I need reminding," Natalie replied, rising on her toes to kiss him deeply. That weekend became a treasured memory for them both. They skied during the day, enjoying the perfect December snow. Evenings were spent by the fire, talking for hours or simply being together in comfortable silence. It was as if the world beyond their cabin ceased to exist, giving them space to deepen their connection without distractions. On Sunday afternoon, reluctant to return to reality, they took one last walk around the frozen lake. Snow had begun to fall gently, dusting Natalie's hair with tiny crystals that caught the winter sunlight. "I wish we could stay longer," Natalie sighed, her gloved hand warm in Lucas's. "We could buy a place up here," Lucas suggested impulsively. "Somewhere to escape whenever we need to." Natalie looked up at him, surprise evident in her expression. "You'd want that, a vacation home we'd share." "I want everything with you, Natalie," Lucas said, the words coming easily now. "A home in the mountains, holidays together, waking up beside you every morning for the rest of my life." He hadn't planned to do this now. The ring was hidden in his sock drawer back home, waiting for Christmas Eve. But standing here in the perfect stillness of the winter forest, Lucas knew this was the moment. Releasing her hand, he lowered himself to one knee in the snow, looking up at Natalie's stunned face. "I don't have the ring with me," he admitted with a small laugh. "This wasn't how I planned to do this, but I can't wait another day to ask you to be my wife." Tears filled Natalie's eyes as she pressed her hands to her mouth. "Lucas, I love you more than I ever thought possible," Lucas continued, his heart pounding. "You've shown me what truly matters in life. Will you marry me, Natalie?" "Yes," she whispered, nodding emphatically as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes, of course I'll marry you." Lucas stood, lifting her off her feet as he kissed her, both of them laughing and crying at once. Snowflakes swirled around them as if celebrating their engagement. "I can't believe you beat me to it," Natalie said when he finally set her down. "What do you mean?" Natalie reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small package wrapped in silver paper. "This was supposed to be your Christmas present, but now seems like the right time." Curious, Lucas unwrapped it to find a vintage pocket watch, exquisitely restored. When he opened it, he found an inscription inside. "To Lucas for all our moments together. Love, Natalie." "It's perfect," he said, deeply touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. They walked back to the cabin hand in hand, making plans and dreaming of their future together. The weekend that had begun as a simple getaway had become the beginning of their next chapter. On the drive back to the city that evening, Lucas called his mother, putting her on speakerphone. "Mom, we have some news," he began, exchanging a smile with Natalie. "You're engaged," Diane exclaimed immediately. "I knew it," Lucas laughed. "How did you guess?" "A mother knows these things, darling," Diane replied smugly. "Oh, this is wonderful. When's the wedding?" "Spring is lovely, but summer gives you more options for outdoor venues." "Mom, we just got engaged a few hours ago," Lucas interrupted. "We haven't discussed dates yet." "Well, don't wait too long," Diane advised. "The best venues book up a year in advance. I'll start making some calls tomorrow. We'll handle the planning ourselves," Natalie interjected gently. "But we'd love your input, Diane. Maybe we could have lunch this week to discuss some ideas." Lucas shot her a grateful look as his mother happily agreed to lunch, promising to bring magazines and vendor recommendations. "You're a miracle worker," Lucas told Natalie after ending the call. "She would have taken over completely if you hadn't redirected her." "I meant what I said," Natalie replied. "I value her input. I just don't want our wedding planned entirely by committee." "Our wedding," Lucas repeated, liking the sound of it. "When do you want to get married?" Natalie considered the question. "I don't need a long engagement." "Spring or summer would be perfect, like your mom suggested." 6 months, Lucas proposed. "That gives us time to plan without waiting too long." Natalie nodded, her smile radiant. June would be beautiful, not too hot yet but warm enough for an outdoor ceremony. June it is, Lucas agreed, reaching for her hand. I can't wait to make you my wife. The news of their engagement spread quickly. Lucas's executive team sent an enormous arrangement of flowers to Natalie's design studio. Her staff threw a surprise engagement lunch. Business associates and friends called with congratulations, and Diane immediately began compiling guest lists and venue options, despite Natalie's diplomatic attempts to slow her down. Christmas was a whirlwind of family gatherings and celebrations. Lucas formally presented Natalie with her engagement ring, a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in platinum with smaller diamonds accenting the band. It was elegant and distinctive, much like Natalie herself. As the new year began, wedding plans took shape alongside their busy professional lives. The Riverside Commons project was completed ahead of schedule, with the grand opening scheduled for early March. Natalie's hotel renovation was in full swing, keeping her busy but fulfilled. They found a perfect venue for their June wedding, an elegant estate outside the city with gardens that would be in full bloom. Natalie selected a dress. Lucas arranged for a honeymoon in Italy, and gradually, all the pieces fell into place. Through it all, their relationship deepened. They had disagreements, of course, over wedding details, work schedules, even how to load the dishwasher, but they learned to communicate and compromise, strengthening their bond with each resolution. One evening in late February, Lucas returned home to find Natalie sitting on the couch, staring thoughtfully at her laptop. She'd been unusually quiet at breakfast, and Lucas had sensed something was on her mind. "Everything okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I received an interesting offer today," Natalie said, turning to face him. "A design firm in Chicago wants to partner with me. They have a major hotel chain as a client that's expanding nationwide, and they're impressed with my sustainable approach." Lucas felt a momentary pang of worry. Chicago. Would that mean relocating? No, Natalie assured him quickly. They'd want me to maintain my office here, but I'd be traveling more frequently. Maybe a week each month in Chicago, plus site visits to various locations. Lucas nodded slowly, processing the information. "It sounds like an amazing opportunity." "It is," Natalie agreed, "but it would mean significant changes to my schedule, more time away from home, from you, with the wedding coming up and us just settling into living together." "Do you want to do it?" Lucas asked simply. Natalie hesitated, then nodded. "I do. It would take my business to another level, allow me to implement sustainable design practices on a much larger scale, but not if it would put strain on us." Lucas took her hands in his. "Natalie, I would never ask you to limit your professional growth for me. That's not the kind of partnership I want. But the travel, the time apart, we'll make it work," Lucas said confidently. "I can fly to Chicago some weekends when you're there. We'll schedule date nights when you're home. Maybe I'll even take some time off to travel with you occasionally." Natalie searched his face. "Are you sure? A year ago, you were too busy for a relationship at all." "A year ago, I didn't understand what I was missing," Lucas replied honestly. "You've shown me there's more to life than work. But that doesn't mean either of us should sacrifice our professional dreams. We'll find the balance together." Natalie's smile was worth any potential inconvenience. "I love you, Lucas Iverson." "I love you too," he replied, pulling her close. "And I'm incredibly proud of you." "When do they need your decision?" "Next week," Natalie said. "There would be a meeting in Chicago to finalize details." "Then I'm coming with you," Lucas decided. "We'll make a weekend of it. I've never properly shown you Chicago, and it happens to be where I went to business school." Natalie's eyes lit up. "I'd like that. Very much." The Chicago trip became a perfect blend of business and pleasure. While Natalie met with her potential partners, Lucas arranged for dinner at his favorite restaurants, took her to architectural landmarks she'd only seen in books, and showed her the university where he'd spent his graduate years. On their last night there, strolling along the lakefront after dinner, Natalie turned to him with a contemplative expression. "Thank you for supporting me in this." "Always," Lucas replied simply. "I've been thinking," Natalie continued, her voice thoughtful, "about what happens after the wedding. About our future." "What specifically?" Lucas asked, intrigued by her serious tone. "Children," Natalie said directly. "I know we've mentioned wanting a family someday, but we've never really discussed timing, with this new partnership and your company expanding." Lucas considered the question carefully. "What are you thinking?" "That maybe we should enjoy being married for a while first," Natalie suggested. "Give ourselves a year or two before we start trying for a baby. Get used to our new work rhythms, travel together, just be us for a bit longer." "I think that sounds perfect," Lucas agreed, relieved they were on the same page. "Though my mother will be disappointed. She's already hinting about grandchildren." Natalie laughed. "She'll just have to be patient. Some things shouldn't be rushed." As they continued their walk, Lucas marveled at how easily they navigated these important conversations. With previous relationships, he'd always avoided discussions of the future, reluctant to commit himself to plans that might interfere with his business goals. With Natalie, he found himself eagerly planning years ahead, imaging their life unfolding together. March brought the grand opening of Riverside Commons. The development had generated significant buzz in the real estate community for its innovative approach to sustainable luxury living. Nearly 70% of the units were already sold, with the rest expected to go quickly after the official launch. The opening gala was a lavish affair, with city officials, business leaders, and prospective buyers mingling in the beautifully appointed community center, Natalie's crown jewel of the project. Her designs had transformed the space into something both elegant and welcoming, with sustainable materials and energy-efficient systems that set new standards for the industry. Lucas found himself watching proudly as Natalie charmed potential buyers, explaining the thoughtful details of her designs. Several guests commented on how seamlessly the architecture and interiors worked together, creating spaces that felt both luxurious and livable. "Your fiancé is remarkable," James commented, appearing at Lucas's side with champagne flutes for them both. "The sustainable elements she incorporated have become our biggest selling point." "She is remarkable," Lucas agreed, accepting the champagne, "and not just professionally." James smiled knowingly. "Marriage agrees with you, and you're not even married yet." "What does that mean?" Lucas asked, raising an eyebrow. "You delegate more. You leave the office at reasonable hours. You smile occasionally," James listed. "It's disconcerting for those of us who have worked with you for years." Lucas laughed. "I'm still the same driven businessman. With better priorities," James countered. "It's a good change, Lucas." Later that evening, as the party wound down, Lucas found Natalie on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into him with a contented sigh. "Congratulations," he murmured against her hair. "Everyone loves what you've created here." "What we've created," Natalie corrected him. "This was a true collaboration, Lucas." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, enjoying the cool spring air and the distant hum of the city. 3 months until we're married," Lucas said softly. "Does that seem surreal to you?" Natalie turned in his arms to face him. "Sometimes. But then I think about how right it feels, and it seems like the most natural progression in the world. When I think about how close I came to canceling that first dinner," Lucas admitted, "it terrifies me. If I'd followed my instincts that night, But you didn't, Natalie interrupted, placing her finger against his lips. And here we are. Here we are, Lucas echoed, pulling her closer. I should send my mother flowers tomorrow as a thank you. Natalie laughed. Don't. She'll never let you forget it. Too late for that, Lucas replied with a grin. She reminds me at least once a week that she was right all along. Was she? Natalie asked, her eyes searching his. Right about what exactly? Lucas considered the question seriously. That I needed someone who understood me, who challenged me to be better, who saw beyond the successful businessman to the person underneath. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. That I needed you, specifically, that we were meant for each other. Natalie's expression softened. I think she was right about all of it. As they left the gala hand in hand, Lucas reflected on how completely his life had changed in less than a year. He had always defined himself by his work, measured his worth by his professional accomplishments. Now, with Natalie by his side, he understood that success meant nothing without love to give it meaning. The months leading up to their June wedding passed in a blur of final preparations and professional commitments. Natalie traveled to Chicago twice for meetings with her new partners, while Lucas focused on securing land for his next major development. Despite their busy schedules, they prioritized time together, weekend mornings lingering over coffee, evening walks through their neighborhood, occasional impromptu date nights when they both needed a break from wedding planning and work demands. One such evening in late May, just 2 weeks before the wedding, they were enjoying dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant when Lucas noticed Natalie seemed distracted. Second thoughts, he asked lightly, though his heart skipped a beat at the possibility. Natalie looked up from her pasta, startled. What? No, of course not. You seem a million miles away, Lucas observed. Everything okay? Natalie hesitated, then reached across the table for his hand. I was thinking about my mother, how much I wish she could be at our wedding. Lucas squeezed her hand sympathetically. I wish I could have met her. She would have loved you, Natalie said with a sad smile, once she got past the millionaire part. What do you mean? Lucas asked, curious. My mom was suspicious of wealth, Natalie explained. She grew up poor, worked incredibly hard for everything she had. She always worried that money changed people and not for the better. She wouldn't be entirely wrong, Lucas acknowledged. I've seen it happen. But not to you, Natalie said firmly. You've never forgotten where you came from. You still work as hard as when you were just starting out. You care about creating homes for people, not just profits. Lucas felt deeply touched by her assessment. I try to. Sometimes the business side takes over. That's why we balance each other, Natalie replied. You remind me to be practical when I get too idealistic. I remind you why you started building in the first place. They finished dinner talking about Natalie's mother, the lessons she'd taught Natalie, the sacrifices she'd made as a single parent, the pride she'd taken in her daughter's accomplishments. Lucas felt he knew her a little by the time they left the restaurant, and understood better the woman Natalie had become. The wedding week arrived with perfect June weather, sunny days and mild temperatures ideal for their outdoor ceremony. Family members began arriving from out of town, including Lucas's aunt from Seattle, whom he hadn't seen in years, and Natalie's cousin from Boston, who would serve as her maid of honor. The rehearsal dinner, hosted by Diane at her country club, was an elegant affair that brought together their closest friends and family. Lucas watched Natalie move easily among his relatives, charming his taciturn uncle and drawing out his shy young cousin with genuine interest in her college studies. She's remarkable, his Aunt Elizabeth commented, appearing at his side with a glass of wine. Your mother said you met through her matchmaking, but I didn't believe it until now, Lucas laughed. Mom will never let me forget that she was right. Mothers usually are, Elizabeth replied with a knowing smile. Your father would have adored her, you know. She has his same practical creativity, seeing possibilities others miss. Lucas felt a familiar pang at the mention of his father. I think about that sometimes, what he would think of all this. He'd be incredibly proud, Elizabeth said firmly. Not just of your business success, but of the man you've become, especially this past year. What do you mean? Lucas asked, genuinely curious. Your mother says you've changed, Elizabeth explained. Softened around the edges, started delegating more, trusting your team. Made room in your life for more than work. Lucas glanced across the room at Natalie, who caught his eye and smiled warmly. I've had a good reason to. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Lucas spent the morning with his groomsmen, trying to focus on their good-natured ribbing rather than the nervous anticipation building inside him. By the time he took his place at the altar, surrounded by flowers and greenery in the estate's garden, his hands were steady and his heart certain. When Natalie appeared at the end of the rose-lined aisle, Lucas felt his breath catch. Her dress was elegant simplicity, flowing silk that highlighted her natural grace, her hair adorned with tiny white flowers. She carried a bouquet of lilies and wild roses, but Lucas barely noticed it. He couldn't take his eyes from her face, from the love shining there that mirrored his own. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotion. They had written their own vows, Lucas promising to partner with Natalie in all things, to support her dreams as she supported his, to build a life with her founded on trust and mutual respect. Natalie promising to remind Lucas of what truly mattered when work threatened to consume him, to challenge him when he needed challenging, to love him completely through whatever life brought their way. When they were pronounced husband and wife, Lucas kissed Natalie with all the love he felt, dimly aware of applause and cheers around them. They walked back up the aisle hand in hand, officially beginning their journey together. The reception was everything they'd planned, elegant but not stuffy, joyful and intimate, despite the 200 guests. They danced their first dance to the same song that had been playing during their first kiss on the harbor walk, Natalie's head resting against Lucas's shoulder as they moved together. Happy, he murmured into her hair. Natalie looked up at him, her eyes shining. Completely. You. More than I ever thought possible, Lucas replied honestly. Later, as they moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and sharing laughter, Lucas found himself by his mother's side. Diane was resplendent in blue silk, watching the proceedings with unmistakable satisfaction. I suppose this is the moment you've been waiting for, Lucas said, handing her a glass of champagne. When you get to say, I told you so, Diane smiled serenely. I would never be so crass, darling, though I was right. Lucas laughed, kissing her cheek affectionately. Yes, Mom, you were right. Thank you for introducing us. I knew from the moment I met her, Diane said, watching Natalie across the room. She has that special quality, strength without hardness, like your grandmother had. Is that why you invited her to the fundraiser in the first place? Lucas asked curiously. You never did explain how you met Natalie. Her firm had done some work for the hospital board, Diane explained. I was impressed with her ideas, her professionalism. Then I learned she was single and something just clicked. Mother's intuition, I suppose. Well, your intuition changed my life, Lucas acknowledged softly. For the better. Diane patted his arm affectionately. That's all any mother wants, darling, to see her child truly happy. As the evening wound down, Lucas and Natalie said their goodbyes and departed amid a shower of rose petals. Their honeymoon would begin the next day, 2 weeks in Italy, exploring Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. In their hotel suite that night, Natalie emerged from the bathroom in a silk robe, her makeup removed and her hair loose around her shoulders. Lucas thought she had never looked more beautiful. "Mrs. Iverson," he said, testing the name on his tongue. Natalie smiled, coming to stand before him. "That sounds strange. Good strange. No regrets?" Lucas asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Only that we didn't meet sooner," Natalie replied, rising on her toes to kiss him. Later, as they lay entwined in the darkness, Natalie's head resting on his chest, Lucas felt a profound sense of rightness. All the success, all the wealth he had accumulated over the years, none of it compared to the simple joy of holding his wife in his arms. "What are you thinking?" Natalie murmured sleepily. "That my mother was right," Lucas admitted with a soft laugh, "and that I'm the luckiest man alive." Natalie hummed contentedly. "We're both lucky, and we have our whole lives ahead of us." "Our whole lives," Lucas echoed, tightening his arms around her. "I can't wait." 1 year later, Lucas stood in the nursery of their new home, a spacious house they had designed together, combining his practical knowledge of construction with Natalie's eye for beautiful, functional spaces. The walls were painted a soft green, the furniture natural wood, the whole room filled with morning light from large windows overlooking their garden. They had returned from their Italian honeymoon to dive back into their busy lives, Lucas overseeing the groundbreaking of his newest development, Natalie traveling between Chicago and various hotel sites across the country. But they had kept their promise to each other, making time for their relationship amid professional demands, supporting each other's ambitions while nurturing their life together. After 6 months in their penthouse, they had decided to find a place that was truly theirs, not Lucas's space that Natalie had moved into, but a home they created together from the ground up. They had found the perfect lot just outside the city, close enough for easy commutes, but with the space and privacy they both wanted. Building their home together had been both challenging and deeply rewarding. They had disagreements, of course, Lucas favoring practicality, Natalie insisting on certain design elements he initially thought unnecessary. But each compromise brought them closer, each decision made together strengthening their partnership. Now, standing in the nursery that would soon welcome their first child, Lucas felt that same sense of rightness that had filled him on their wedding day. Life had taken an unexpected turn when his mother arranged that first dinner, setting him on a path he never would have chosen for himself. "There you are," Natalie said from the doorway, one hand resting on her rounded belly. "I've been looking for you." Lucas turned, smiling at the sight of his wife. Pregnancy suited her, she glowed with a new kind of beauty that took his breath away. "Just making sure everything's ready," he explained, crossing the room to wrap his arms around her as best he could with her 7-month belly between them. 3 weeks until the furniture arrives," Natalie reminded him. 2 months until we need it. You're worse than I am." Lucas laughed, placing his hand beside hers on her stomach, feeling their daughter kick against his palm. "I want everything to be perfect." "It already is," Natalie assured him, leaning up to kiss him softly. "Everything important anyway." As they stood together in the room that would soon complete their family, Lucas reflected on how thoroughly his priorities had shifted. The ambitious young man who had canceled dates for business meetings, who had viewed relationships as distractions from success, seemed like a distant memory. "Penny for your thoughts," Natalie said, studying his face. "I was just thinking about how wrong I was," Lucas replied honestly. "All those years I thought success meant bigger buildings, more money, expanding the company. I had no idea." "No idea about what?" Natalie prompted, though her smile suggested she already knew. "That this is what success really feels like," Lucas said, gesturing around them at the home they had built together, at the life they were creating. That my mother was right all along about what I was missing. Natalie laughed softly. Don't tell her that. She's insufferable enough already about her matchmaking triumph. Too late, Lucas admitted with a grin. I may have mentioned it when she called yesterday. Lucas, Natalie groaned, but she was laughing too. She'll never let us forget it now. I don't want to forget it, Lucas said more seriously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. How we met, how you changed everything for me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Me too, Natalie whispered, her eyes shining with emotion. Who would have thought your mother would be such an excellent matchmaker? Not me, Lucas admitted ruefully. It's the one time in my life I've been happy to be proven completely wrong. As they walked hand in hand through the home they had created together, Lucas felt profound gratitude for his mother's persistence, for Natalie's patience, and for the unexpected journey that had led him to this moment, to a kind of happiness he never knew existed until a blind date changed everything. His mother had been right all along. Some things were more important than work. Some successes couldn't be measured in dollars or square footage. And sometimes, the most unexpected detours led to exactly where you were meant to be all along.